protagonista.com.
Buenas noches, gente, buenas noches. Sí. Esto es increíble. No se puede creer esto, realmente no lo puedo creer. Lo que vamos a vivir esta noche va a ser una cosa, la verdad, tremenda, porque creo que realmente ni Mario y yo estamos preparados para esto, como le dije, ni ustedes están preparados para esto. Así que, sin mucha vuelta, le voy a dejar entrar a Mario. Mario,
estamos hasta las manos acá, señores. Estoy muy bien, estoy muy contento, estoy muy feliz. Ya se me fueron los nervios. Así que vamos a darle con todo, porque la verdad, estamos frente a un maestro de verdad.
Antes que nada, gente, recuerden esto, recuerden dejar su like, apoyar este contenido. Si quieren colaborar, ya saben, tienen el cafecito. Los de Argentina tienen el cafecito, los de el exterior del país pueden utilizar el super chat como quieran. Y acá arriba,
compartan el contenido.
Y acá arriba les voy a dejar cómo poner los subtítulos una vez que esté subido la entrevista como video. Pero ahora vamos a hablar en inglés y vamos a presentar a este señor que es the 5-time Eisner Award winner.
Yes, sir.
The one and only Mr. Brian Michael Bendis.
Hi. How are you?
How are you?
How are you, sir?
I don't know what you just said, and I hope it was all, appropriate.
It's only words of joy, sir.
Okay. I was hoping so.
Yeah.
I was listening for words I would get, and I didn't hear any. I was like, oh.
It's like always. It's paperwork for later. Yeah, we spoke about the subtitles because after we finish the interview stays as a video, and I upload the subtitles in order the other people that doesn't speak English can enjoy the interview.
Well, I want to tell your regular viewers and listeners that Kyle has been diligent in making this happen, and I really appreciate it. And had a lot of underlying guilt about our emails getting trapped in spam folders and stuff. So I'm glad we're having this today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And as I said before, thank you for being so kind with me. For being so kind to answer the emails and for being here today. It's a real honor for me to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
It's a real honor for me.
And for the people, he's here. Brian Michael Bendis is here in Protagonistas del comic. So it's a huge.
It's amazing. In the next room, there's a bunch of little kids with my last name, and they don't care that I'm here. I walk through all day. They never notice. They just, sorry.
There's a lot of people that says hello to you, Mr. Bendis.
We got a comment. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hi, everybody. Oh, it's nice to see everybody. I had it.
There's a lot of comments here saying hi
from DC collectors.
Anybody got any questions or anything? I'm happy to answer. So,
yes, of course.
Here they are calling you the father of the ultimate.
A co-stepfather.
Co-stepfather. We have here Damian sends to you hi, say hi to you. He's another partner from us.
Another
he worked with us.
Of us.
Yeah. So cool. he really loves your work, sir.
Oh,
He's a big fan of your Avengers.
There's people from Peru that says hi.
Isn't that amazing? We're like all connected through story together. It's just the most beautiful thing.
Yes.
And the most beautiful thing is that we share the same feeling about comics, that we love it.
Yep.
We love it, and that's what binds us together.
That's amazing.
For a start, let us know what were your beginnings in the comic, how you got into comics in the first time.
Yeah,
as a reader.
I had them at a very early age. I fell in love with them and discovered them like as I was learning how to read and figure out what kind of human person I am. So they're a very big part of me. And then like I've talked about this a couple of times, but I got to that age where they were just stories I was reading and enjoying. Front here, there's people who do this. There's a writer and an artist, and is this a job? Can I have this job that you do this all day? I would like, if that's a job, I would like it. And I went into like at the dinner table and I stood up and I announced that I was going to be the artist of Spider-Man. I was 6 years old. And I stood up and I sat back down as it was declared. And years ago, my mother called me up, and said, "Hey, do you remember that dinner where you stood up?" And I go, "Yeah, I talked about it in my TED Talk." And she goes, "You got pretty close. I mean, considering the world and how complicated it is, it's pretty good." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." It's amazing how many things were in my way, and I just kept gearing towards it. I didn't get to draw any of them, but I got close. So and as soon as I figured out it was a job you could have, I just dedicated all of my free time to figuring out how to do it and how to make it in comics and how to draw them and how to write them and how to letter them. And as I got older, my tastes evolved and improved. But also the other problem was I was in high school. I was graduating high school in 1985, 1986. So people know their comics history. That's Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, Camelot 3000, Teen Titans, Legion of Superheroes. It's a real, genuine, and then Love and Rockets, Cerebus. I mean, it's a real moment.
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah. Yes. Everything. It's a real moment in time for comics, like cinema in the 70s in America. It's just everything seemed important. And for me also, it felt like Frank Miller's existence lit a fire under everyone's ass in comics. Like everyone was swinging for the fences because he showed up, right? And so I as a young man, influenced by all of it, I was ruined. I mean, I was just like I couldn't stop thinking about them. I'm reading comics and inhaling them. This is also those like pre-internet where you would just sit with a book and just stare at it because there's nothing else. Like there's no other noise. Like you can literally just stare at the printing mistakes and enjoy those. Like everything about the comic got inhaled into my system. And
in those days, the readers, the only thing from interaction you had was a telephone decision about a death.
No, or the letter columns. Like the only reason I knew other people read them is that there were letter columns. Like I didn't know anybody else who was into comics, and the people who were, they certainly weren't into it at my almost crazy level. And it was funny, years later when I met one of my heroes, Bill Sienkiewicz, and we were fawning all over him as you do. And he said to us, it was so funny when I was working on New Mutants, it was like pre-internet and we had no idea anyone, we got like 2 letters. We didn't know anyone. And meanwhile, everyone who read it, my age, was like, I must do this for a living. We're like, he's completely changing our lives, but he had no idea. And it's a completely different relationship that they used to have back in the day to the relationship we have now, where I get 50 reviews of a Superman issue the morning it comes out. Like before you get, like, how did you have time to read it? Like, it's like people have already responded, and it's quite a privilege to have instantaneous feedback like that. but it is completely different from the world that I was reading comics in as a kid. So I think about that all the time, and how I think it's more a good thing because it keeps it keeps us all honest. Like if I fuck up, you're going to be right there on my Twitter feed telling me. So I think it makes us work harder and makes us.
And also nowadays the comic conventions are very, very popular.
Oh my goodness! I just came back from Dragon Con and I flashed back to the kind of comic book shows I was going to as a kid, because I had a lot of interactions with kids at Dragon Con, and you could see they were overwhelmed. And from when I was there was no cosplay when I was a kid. I know I'm sounding like an old man, but like all of these expressions of love are still relatively new. And like a comic convention was literally a couple of guests and a bunch of boxes, and now it's a party, man. It's a party that doesn't stop. And whatever you're into, there's a bunch of people into it too. It's amazing. So I love it so much. I was quite overwhelmed by Dragon Con and Rose City Con we just had. I hadn't left the house in a couple of years because the pandemic, and so to come back and just have that connection, that beautiful human connection with people because of stories, is amazing.
Wait to see the Argentinian fans here if you come some.
I would love to.
Yeah, and also the conventions gave us the possibility to meet the comic book creators as a reader. And what I always say is that comic book creators, I think you don't realize the magnitude of
how big you are.
How big you are for us. It's like I don't know. For me, it's like meeting. I don't know.
A real hero,
for example,
the real hero for us as
a rock star. For me, it's like a rock star. Meeting Brian Michael Bendis.
Well, I appreciate it. Let me describe this to you. I know I can understand the feeling and share with you because I have heroes and people that I admire a great deal, that even though some of them I've even had opportunity to meet and even have dinner with, and it still hasn't changed how I react around them. So I know this. It's just near impossible for me to see myself in that regard. And also another reason is the reality of our life is that we're alone in a room most of the time. And I really wrote about this in Cover, actually, because it's a very funny dichotomy of comics specifically, that to be very good at this, you have to spend a lot of time by yourself. Even if you're collaborating with someone, you're still doing the work, just you and the work, right? So the reward, if you get really good at staying alone in the room by yourself for years and years and years, your reward is you go to somewhere else and sit on a stage. It's completely different. It's so funny that that a bunch of people that are so good at being alone are then rewarded by being put on a stage. Very funny.
Here we have a comment from a comic book artist. It's called Geraldo Borges. I don't know if you know him. He's working at DC.
Great.
Today he's working in Nightwing with Bruno Redondo and Tom Taylor.
Oh, great.
And he says,
I love that book. Me and my son read that book at night. That's one of our nighttime reads. Loves Tom Taylor.
He says something like this. I'm trying to translate. It's how to maintain your way and your personality as a writer when you work for great editorials in general, but they have a rigid editorial line and then
can affect on your creativity.
Can frequently affect on your creativity. It's like a question. It's if the
Okay, so
editorial,
my creativity.
If the editorial, I don't know, line affect your creativity when you have to write a title.
I've been I'm speaking in this regard. I'm speaking from a very big place of privilege because first of all, the first 10 years I couldn't get anyone to look at my stuff. So when I did get to Marvel, I was coming to Marvel. They were coming out of bankruptcy, and Joe Quesada, soon after I was hired, started his run. And so I, myself, Mark, and a few other people kind of came into Marvel all at the same time, and it was basically a start over for the company. Like they never stopped publishing or anything like that, but they were in bankruptcy because of one business model, started a new business model, and that became what we are now, this golden age of Marvel being the shining star of the Disney Corporation and everything. But at the time I was there, they were literally selling furniture for cash. And so I walked into an editorial scenario that asked me to be part of it from, a very low selling independent comic I was doing. Like I wasn't, they just liked my work. So I walked into a very respectful situation and stayed there for most of my career, where I was part of the building blocks of what they were building from the get-go. So it never felt like, it always felt like the good version of collaboration. Like I was part of, we're all building this together. Also, I find myself always surrounded by writers and creators far better than me. It's very inspiring when you're like at Marvel, and yeah, it's a shared universe and there's an editorial direction, but you're also working with the best in the business. The best people who are making comics right now have shown up at the door. So you're at a Marvel retreat, and there's Jason Aaron and Jeff Lemire and the list goes on and on and on. Matt Fraction, Ed Brubaker, and you're like honored to be in the room. That I often found myself writing at a level and with ideas better than I could come up with just by myself. I'm aware of what I do when I'm alone, right? But being with Matt or being with Ed or being like, and bouncing ideas off each other, we get to a higher place, right? So it never felt to me like I was being held down. It felt like I was being held up, all right? And that's just good editorial direction. Now, I know there's other people in this business who do not feel that they walk into the editorial situation and it's frustrating for them. It doesn't fit. And then I don't think you should do it. Also, not everyone's Joe Quesada. I had Joe, Tom Brevoort, Nick Lowe. These are the best editors that have ever worked in comics, and that's who I was making my books with. And then when I got over to DC, they welcomed me in as if I was one of them, fully based on like my previous credits. So even though I wasn't part of the woodwork of what was going on at DC, and in fact I was like, very much an outsider towards this group that had been together for a very long time. They treated
Brian,
me with, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but asking about you saying that you start working on Marvel after the bankruptcy. So how Joe Quesada organized all the work, because it's you have to start over again.
Yeah, it was a start. Well, what happened was they didn't write by accident, and what they did was they given Joe and Jimmy Palmiotti had an imprint called Marvel Knights over there, and those books were really handsome, very strongly produced books. Nancy Quesada is also one of the best editors in the business, and those books were really beautiful. And while some of the other parts of the editorial line were struggling, and some people were leaving, some people were going, and I got hired to do a Nick Fury book that never happened, and which was a bummer. And I thought I was going to have to go to the back of the line again. And instead, they called me and said, "Hey, come help us out with Daredevil because it's behind schedule." Like there had been Kevin Smith was on it. They weren't sure when he was coming back, so they said, "Hey, you want to come on and do Daredevil?" And for me, it was a dream come true. So I got to watch as soon after I got hired on Daredevil, I wrote the first couple issues, and they called me up and said, "Hey, so there's a guy named Bill Jemas, and they're starting Spider-Man over from scratch, and they're going to call you. Is that something you want to do?" And that's when I got to sense, I was told, here's how we're going to save Marvel, right? And it wasn't just, it was the ultimate line that would be produced to be reader friendly. And then here's the piece that some of the other publishers keep missing. They went out of their way to get that book into everyone's hands. If you bought a tennis shoe, like Payless shoes, or like there was free comic copies of it everywhere they could put them, knowing not everyone's going to become a fan, but we gotta let people know comics are a thing. We gotta let people know that we're still making them and that they're awesome and that they're fun and they're our best foot forward. And so so what happened was the Ultimate line was starting. Other editorial ideas were starting. Bill Jemas was taking over with Joe Quesada, and the old regime was coming out. And then at the same time, Blade had made money. The X-Men movie was coming along. The Spider-Man movie was coming along. And as soon as that first Spider-Man movie made, I think it was $112 million. It was more money than any movie had ever made in opening weekend at the time. Yeah. And everything changed. Like everything went back to normal. Like, oh, there's money in them, their hills. So it's crazy to think that they were so close to bankruptcy, or they were in bankruptcy, and now to think of who they are. Like I stopped to tell people that because it just is a reminder of how much the world has changed, and that I'm actually speaking about a world that just no longer exists. It doesn't, like 1999 is not a thing. Everything that was in 1999 doesn't exist anymore, culturally, socially. So it's and nothing speaks more to that than the fact that Marvel was on the balls of its ass and turned it around. What then happened was watching Joe and his entire editorial crew really roll up their sleeves and get to work. And we started having editorial retreats, which they had. I was under the impression they had not had for a while, which means they would fly us to New York. And a couple of times, it was literally just me and Mark Miller were flown to New York, and we sat in a small card table in the conference room or the kitchen. I remember that's where the first place I heard the idea for Marvel Zombies, and I was really embarrassed that I heard it. And they're zombies. But they're Marvel zombies anyway. So and then from the success of those little tiny rooms, they blew up the room to be like 60 people big, and then 100 people big. Like everyone in editorial, all of the writers, some of the artists, like a lot of people would come into town, and that's the way it was from the entire time I was there. Is that these editorial retreats? Sometimes they were every couple of years, and then they became a few times a year, and that's where House of M came from. That's where the Civil War came. Like all the events, really. Like even if someone comes to the room with an idea for an event, which I've done a couple of times, they really come to life in the room with all the voices adding flavor to it.
So as we say here in Argentina, you have a meeting at the kitchen, so you are cooking all the events.
We were in the kitchenette for the first one. I remember that very clearly. I remember a lot of that conversation, strangely, because there's conversations I had last week I don't remember a word of, but that conversation I remember very clearly. I think it's because I couldn't believe where I was. I think it was one of the rare moments where I was actually in the moment going, shit, I'm at Marvel Comics making Marvel Comics. like after decades and years of rejections, and I have literally a box of rejection letters, some from editors I've worked with fondly. So it was amazing to be in the room, and it was as special as I thought it would be. So But to answer the rest of Walter's question, so at Marvel, I had a wonderful time most of the time. I mean, everyone's got days where they're like, "Oh, this job," but even on those days, it's very easy to go, "Yeah, I'm making comic books." Like I have some friends with some really haunting jobs. So when they're really bad, they're really bad. And my worst day is someone in editorial didn't get it, or something was misinterpreted. It's, that's not a bad day. And then when I went to DC, Dan DiDio offered me a great deal of respect that I felt. Oh shit, I got to earn this. He's given me a lot of his love, and I appreciated that. And so I was very grateful for that. So so for most of my career, I've only seen the editorial process as a plus, as a positive. But I do know it's stifling, it's strangling for other people. And I say, for those other people, it might be that creator owned is where you go. Like I like doing both. I benefited from both, and I benefited from doing both at the same time for most of my career. But I know there's some people who I've worked with at Marvel and DC who was standing right next to me and didn't like it at all, while I was having a blast. Like, I'm having the best time, and the person next to me goes, I don't want to be here. And I'm like, yeah, then you shouldn't. Then you should go write your own thing and do your own thing. So yeah, it's not for everybody. And also, it's a lot of work, like no matter what, like it is right. Making comics, it takes a lot of time to do it right and to do it well. And everyone around us is constantly raising the bar, right? So everyone's, every day there's a new voice coming in showing us all, you better get to work. We're not messing around. You got to make good comics. So it takes a lot. But I will say the rewards are enormous, just beyond enormous.
You mentioned one of the comic books that from the one I met your writing, and I met you as a writer. That was this one. Daredevil,
okay. Yeah.
Alias, and the Illuminati.
Later.
It's for later. But especially the first two, it has this noir style that with Gaido's art and Malib art,
it's
it was a perfect match.
I agree with you, and I'm so happy to tell you that we're still making comic books right now. Me and Alex are just about to start a new book at Dark Horse, and Gaidos and I just finished up Pearl, and we're going to start a new thing in just a couple months after his next job.
So, my God.
Yeah. Gaidos and I went to college together, and we weren't friends at all. I didn't know him. He was a year ahead of me at the same art school and kicking my ass, like just so much better than me. A naturally gifted illustrator in which I struggle. And I was just so angry at myself that I would just take it out on the idea of him. So I was so happy that later, a couple years later, we both ended up at the same publisher, where I got to meet him and break bread and start making comics together, and realize that I absolutely adored his work, top to bottom. And I've been there for quite a few of his best moments as an artist, and it's been very emotional for me. The one just happened on Pearl. I don't know, on the last run of Pearl, he hit a new level, and I don't know what happened. I do not think it had anything to do with our collaboration, other than he is just growing and growing and growing, and I love being part of it.
Oh my God!
If you have to, I don't know, think of something that was great of each of those books, what would you say? That was something that you remember that was, this is the great.
It's a great idea.
Title.
Well, it's going to be mostly how I felt when the pages came in. I'm watching. I'm a huge fan of Alex Maleev, and beyond being, he's one of my friends and partners. But back then, I was looking at his artwork. He was working on The Crow and me and David Mack were like, God, he's so good. And the version we're talking about is like a fourth of the talent he's shown since. Like, it was the earliest in Believe. He has gone on to do work. I mean, his Twitter feed is insane. They're the most beautiful Batman paintings you'll ever see in your life. And I just remember seeing his work and going, see, that's what I want my work to look like. My work, that's what I'm aiming for, and I'm not getting anywhere near it. So the idea that I could team up with him and make comics that look that beautiful was amazing. So we did a little work together on a book called Sam and Twitch for Todd McFarlane. The first time I was ever, when Todd said, who do you want to hire to draw this? And I go, Alex, I don't know, Alex Maleev. And he hired him. And so, and the time that we were working together on Sam and Twitch, it's all beautiful work, but I wasn't fully aware of the power of collaboration. And I was being a little bit not bossy in a bossy way, but I'd spent many years writing and drawing my own books that I didn't know where the writing stopped when it came time to divvy up the job with somebody else. So I would write the whole script and then draw out the pages, like elaborate layouts, and then give them to the artist and say, here it is. Only soon afterwards did I realize that was a huge mistake. And I learned it from our dear friend Mark Bagley, who I just started working with, and he called me up and said, hey, you don't need to draw all that. That's my job. I got it. And he said it so nicely, said it so lovingly that it embarrassed me to tears. But I realized that in that time I was with Alex, that I'd blown it, that I had over collaborated or so soon after that, Joe said, hey, who do you want to work with on Daredevil? And I go, boy, I'd love to get Alex if he'd have me. And then when Daredevil started, I was able to come back to the collaboration as a better collaborator and really let him shine and really like meet him halfway instead of lording over him. And I was so grateful for his friendship through all that. So that's my first thought when I think of it. Two, as I said earlier, I'm a Frank Miller baby. Like my entire high school, Frank Miller's on Daredevil, rocking my world, right? And for those who don't feel as passionate of comics, and I know most people who would be on something like this would, but if you're into music or film and that one album catches you right in the middle of high school and that's it, it defines your high school experience, that's what Frank Miller's Daredevil was for me, right? So then to get the gig and then know your number one job, don't rip off Frank Miller like so many people do, right? I know this from the bottom of my heart. Don't do a Frank Miller cover. Do your own thing, right? So I allowed myself one sentence of Frank Miller fanboyism, and the rest, I really tried to go back to the roots of Wally Wood and Bill Everett and go back to the inspiration that Frank had and build my own language with Alex based on the pulp hero mentality of where it was. So, and it all came to a head for me when we started doing Daredevil End of Days with Bill Sienkiewicz and Klaus Janson. Both are my heroes from that time period, and they're now doing Daredevil with us and having a blast. We're all having the best time, and so that's what I think of when I think of Daredevil. And I only left the book because you kind of got to leave the book eventually. Like, if you felt like you're on Saturday Night Live and I don't want to go, but I guess I'm done. Right. And so that's why I kept coming back to Daredevil and other projects like Defenders and stuff. Cause I wasn't sick of that at all.
End of Days. End of Days.
There was always a little Daredevil in something, Ultimates. And yeah. So, then cut to right out of the same pile of memories comes Jessica Jones, and Ultimate Spider-Man had launched, Daredevil had launched, things had gone very well. Ultimate Spider-Man had exceeded expectations, and everyone's having a lot of like warm feelings towards each other. I'm not really present in it. I'm just can't. I'm like, it'd take me years to like process what was happening. But I got fired from Sam and Twitch for reasons I only half understand. But basically, Todd didn't like me writing Spider-Man while I was working for him, and because Spider-Man was his old gig, so we parted ways on that. I was confused by it. I called Joe, who we were starting our friendship. It was early days of our friendship. And I said, hey, I just got fired. He goes, for what? I go, for writing Sam and Twitch. And he goes, ugh. And so he goes, well, actually, good news. We were just in a meeting where we were talking about, we don't have any crime comics here. So we were going to come to you and say, do you have a Marvel crime comic that you want to do? And I said, let me think about it. And I literally was already half cooking the Private Eye, Jessica Jones, right? And Whoa. Then but I was like, Jesus. So like but I am first and foremost a crime writer, and the language, both the color of the language and the thematic language of crime comics is much deeper and darker than most superhero comics. So I was like, do they know what they're asking for? So I wrote up, not in most of the time you write like an outline or some kind of like a book report for a book that doesn't exist. It's the weirdest way to do this, but it's how they do things. You write up but instead I always try to write a script instead. Like, here, read it. What do you think? I rather, instead of telling you the joke will be funny, why don't I just tell you the joke and see if you think it's funny? And so I wrote like a version of what ended up being the first 11 pages of Jessica Jones in the first issue, which included the sex scene and the language and the F word. And I handed it in and I said, I know you don't do this. I'm not crazy. Like, I know there's no F word Marvel Comics. But
it's a lovely character. It's a lovely character.
Well, thank you, but hold on. I hand the script. I go, I know you don't do this, but this is what a crime comic would be like, right? So let's talk about where the line is, right? And then Bill Jemis, who was running Marvel at the time, called me up and said, yeah, why don't we do this? And I was like, I don't know, but you don't. And he goes, hold on. And he hung up. And then like a day later called up and said, we're doing a new line of adult comics, Max Comics. This is gonna be one of them. And I was like, fantastic. And then off to the only other thing was too is I had a couple of, I was trying to get a Jessica Drew book going. I was trying to make a Spider-Woman book. She was my favorite character in all of Marvel Comics, and I had a couple of almost like, and I might post them online. There was a couple of like, we were very close to me doing a Spider-Woman book as my first book at Marvel years before. And it didn't work out, and it was just an itch I just wanted to do it so much. So I thought, oh, maybe this will be my opportunity. I'll do like a rated R Jessica Drew book. And then I was out putting together the pieces of the book. It just wasn't Jessica Drew. It just wasn't her at all. Like, it doesn't fit anything. And I talked to Bill and Joe about it, and I think Bill said something very funny and true. He goes, yeah, no one cares but you about Jessica Drew. Make it a new character. Then you can have a little taste. And I go, all right, that was honest. So so Jessica Jones was born. I kept the Jessica as a reminder to keep them, that there's separate voices in my head, and one's British, and so Jessica Jones came. But the only thing that's left over from the Jessica is that she would be friends with Carol Danvers. Like, that friendship was born out of Avengers Annual 10 from 1980 something. And but that doesn't mean that Jessica Jones wouldn't be friends with her too. So I kept it.
Yeah. And you had a chance to work with Spider-Woman later.
And then later. Yep.
Yeah. Alex Mallew with Agent of S.W.O.R.D.
No, before that, they gave me Avengers based on me going, why isn't Spider-Man and Wolverine in the Avengers? And then they go, great, you're the writer of Avengers. And I go, and Luke Cage and Spider-Woman. And they said, you said Wolverine and Spider-Man. And so I got both. But I knew Avengers was a great place to introduce or reintroduce Jessica and Luke to a newer audience and show them why I thought they were cool and why I love them so much. And that ended up being a good choice.
Yeah.
And then, yes, I finally got Alex to believe. And I still think that book is among Alex's best work. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's amazing. That book is lovely. I really love the look of the book, and it's quite a story, Quite a story.
And also it was printed here.
Oh, was it? Good.
Yeah.
Well, that one was back when they were really into motion comics. There was a couple years where they were trying to make motion comics happen. And so a lot of the motion comics they were making, they were taking old comics and wiggling them around. And for us, they said, well, why don't we start at motion comic? Let's make a brand new original motion comic. Then that would turn into a comic book. And that's what Spider-Woman was. And it was exhausting and it took forever. And Alex ended up drawing like 30 issues worth of content for those 7 issues. And then we just needed to take a break and we went and did Moon Knight.
Mr. Bendis, a question that when you speak about writing Daredevil, writing Ultimate Spider-Man, writing new Avengers, how did you do that? Because there were
so many heroes, so many stories,
so many still. I imagine a board with a lot of annotations and names and.
I do. I have a lot of like documents and stuff. We keep everything in order. Like you want to keep organized. But it's a mixture. Like you don't want to I learned through trial and error that you want to set up where you have enough to get going, but you don't want to bog yourself down. So let the characters surprise you. Let the story take you where it wants to go. If I'm surprised, you'll be surprised. That's how I see it. So, and for me, I came up through crime fiction. So writing the crime books like, Daredevil and Jessica Jones and even Spider-Man, which has got, a good half of it is a crime comic, was an easier transition. But going to the teen books, to the more cosmic and sci-fi elements of all of it, and really embracing that was a real learning curve for me. I had to really work on it. So I appreciate you saying that, because it's something I actively worked on for myself.
Mm-hmm. Also, Mr. Bendis, when you start, when they tell you, here, you gotta write Avengers, they tell you, but you gotta destroy them first. Was that right?
No, that might have been my idea. Yeah,
I love that story.
Thank you. I will say it is a story with some hubris in it. I will admit. I look at it now and I go, "Who the hell do you think you are?" When I see it, because it's we had that was talking earlier about the Marvel retreats, that came out of the Marvel retreats where we were there, we were all talking. It was a great retreat where Bill and Joe, the whole purpose of the retreat was just, everyone, let's talk about why we make these books. Like, why do we make Iron Man? Not because we own Iron Man, but what's the point of Iron Man? What's the story of Iron Man? What's the theme of it? Are we there? If not, why not? Like, not just publishing for publishing's sake, but really get into it. And when it got to Avengers, both Mark Miller and I started ranting about and also we weren't trying to pitch for the job. We thought we were there just to consult. So we were just like, Mark starts telling a story about in Scotland, he would buy Justice League for a dime because you would get all the heroes for the same amount of money. You'd get one in another comic. And so, and then I was like, it says, why isn't it? And I said, why isn't it Wolverine and Spider-Man? Why isn't it the 7 coolest people in publishing? Like, they're the Avengers, right? And at the moment, And again, no offense to the creators or the fans that like Jack of Hearts, but at the moment it was Jack of Hearts and other stuff that it just wasn't as iconic a lineup, and so I offered this idea that it would be Spider-Man Wolverine, and a big fight broke out in the not a physical fight, but a debate broke out about what the Avengers was and what it meant. And our boss at the time looked over to me, and he had cartoon dollar signs in his eyes. He was so happy that we were debating this. And by the end of the night, it was either going to be me or Mark writing Avengers. And Mark was already writing Ultimates, which is the Avengers. So I was like, I went back to my hotel room and I went, I want it. I want it. And I called up and I said, all right, I'm sorry. I know I said no, but I think I do want it. They said, no, you were going to do it. Like, we knew you were going to do it. So, so from there started, well, let's blow it up and put it back together, right? Let's make a disaster movie, right? And everyone who was into that idea at the time was really into that idea. And then there was a portion of the fans that were very happy with the book and were not looking for me to blow up the fucking mansion. They weren't interested in that. And so I blew up the mansion, and She-Hulk rips up the Vision. And some of this stuff seems like after the Marvel shows, like, how could you do that? But at the time, it was a completely different Marvel. And ripping up the Vision and throwing him in the box seemed perfectly like normal thing to do. And so we like, and of course, if they're going to let me blow up Avengers Mansion, you want to see how far you can take things, right? So it gets, the disaster gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Because honestly, as a fan, that's what I would like to see. If, listen, you guys are going to do it, go for it. And we did, but it was the first like backlash I got from anything. Like I had like a few years where people were being very nice and just about everything was going on, and then I blew up Avengers Mansion. They're like, "Fuck you! Who are you? Why?
Why did you do that?"
But you're right. There's very little emotional difference between what I was doing in Avengers and someone coming up to you in the playground and just knocking the ball out of your hand for no reason. Like, why did you what? So I did learn that, and I owned it at the time, and I did learn. Like listen, when you're going to blow stuff up or kill people, you just know, no matter what you think, someone's a huge fan of this, and you got to honor and respect all that has come before and since. So, and even though I thought that's what we were doing in Avengers Disassembled, I know that the language of it, the look of it is just boom, boom, boom. It doesn't look like I love any of it, even though I love all of it. So I just want to make sure that we know that the love is there. So everyone endured that. And then, and it also gave me the beautiful opportunity to work with George Perez for a couple pages, and just beautiful memories. And then we started New Avengers with David Finch, which worked out way better than any of us thought was going to go. I couldn't believe how well it went. And then we just kept going.
Yeah, that your New Avengers run is one of the most beloved runs in the late years.
Well, I deeply appreciate that. I will say it's so funny to me because from my unique perspective, I hear from everybody. So there are things that people really told me to go to hell about in that run that now all people say is nice things about. But when it came out that day, like when Ronin debuted, people were so mad about Ronin. And it was like a few days of, I'll just go off of Twitter today. I don't need to be here. But and then cut to like years later, Ronin shows up in the Hawkeye TV show, and everyone's tweeting at me, "Yay, Ronin!" And I'm like, this is so weird. Yeah, like so. I try to take in all critique at all. Like I try to really think about it all, but it often things that people yelled at me for became beloved later, and things that people were beloved in the moment, no one talks to me about now. So it's a really weird journey that all these things go on. So I just have to be zen about all of it.
And your run was very long, and you get through a lot of events like House of M, Secret Invasion, Dark Reign, Dark Avengers, and Siege. These were, I think, for me, it was we have I think between House of M and Secret Invasion, it's Civil War, and we had a series of events that changed completely the status quo of the Marvel universe, and especially one of the most the events I most like. It's Secret Invasion because of the change of status quo with the Dark Reign.
I appreciate that.
How was that plan? It was planned from the first time, from the first page when you wrote New Avengers. You were working toward this.
Well, I had signed an exclusive, which meant that I knew I was going to be there for a couple of years, which is most people in comics don't get that liberty of knowing you're still going to have the job in 6 months. It's a freelance world. It just is. And you're that's how it goes. But once I was under a contract and the contract had some years under it, I go, oh, I can really like settle in and plan long term, right? Which is, again, not something a lot of people have the opportunity to do. So I started working on New Avengers, and I did tell early on that I was going to do a very big Skrull reveal, like issue 50 of New Avengers will reveal that like these have been Skrulls. Half of these people have been Skrulls the whole time, and we kept it to like 4 people. Like the artist didn't even know, because I don't want the artist to know, because I don't want them to be hinting at it or thinking about it. I want them to be drawing as realistically as can, because that's what the Skrulls are doing, right? But so then what happened was, you showed House of M. They weren't doing any events at the time. They were just doing comics and stuff. And then come the summer that the House of M came out, originally they said, hey, Joss Whedon's going to go film something and he can't do Astonishing X-Men. Can you do a New Avengers Astonishing X-Men crossover? Like that's all they said. Do you have a story? Right. And that in the House of M percolate. If you even see the first issue, which you just showed, it says on the top, New Avengers Astonishing X-Men. It's the only cover that says it on there, because eventually they realized, oh no, this is House of M. This is just an event unto itself, unrelated to the titles it's touching. And then the audience's reaction was excited and passionate, and even though the stuff they were yelling at us about, it was the good kind of yelling, they were they're into it, and it all ended on Wolverine and getting his memories, like big Wolverine stuff, and so it landed all very well, and Copiel did a beautiful job in that book, and it's most of the reason it's successful, and so, but then it did say to Marvel, oh, we're making events, we're back in the event business, the audience has voted. So, because even when we were making House of M, we were calling it a miniseries. We weren't like event, right? So then, soon after, we let people in on the Skrull plan, right? Because we're about to like drop a Skrull, right? And the Electra Skrull's are going to come, so time to let everybody in on it. And we told them all our plans, and I've been working on it for a while. And always to be in the pages of New Avengers. So it was always, this is the book I'm writing, and like, and it would be hubris to think, and so you'll give me another book and another book. No, it was always supposed to be in the book I'm writing. And at the retreat, our publisher at the time said, hey, this is going to be our summer. And I go, oh, what do you mean? They go, oh, this is our event. I go, but I just did the last event, but they like this, we're going to do this. And even though it wasn't being built that way, I was like, oh, but they're basically saying we're going to give you all the promotion and sell the shit out of this. So of course you're like, I'm in. And so But I was very nervous because once that first scroll reveal happens, we're now letting you know that's the story we've always been telling you, right? And if the audience rejects it, we're screwed because that's what we're doing for the next year. Like it's all like there's no plan B.
Sorry.
Thankfully, it was met well, and we were off to the races. And I was under. You were talking about the editorial process before. I have told Marvel since I've left that looking back on it all, I do think that the years of Secret Invasion were as strong an editorial process that I've ever been involved in. Everyone was firing on all cylinders. Everyone was being equal parts like brave and ambitious and but still true to the characters and so I was very grateful. Tom Brevoort was diligent in making sure we didn't do too many reveals in other books, because that was the other. If in every book, it's a scroll. Like I get it. It get old very quickly. So we had to really position these reveals and across a line of comics, and they did it very well. The marketing campaign behind it was excellent. And so, yeah, it was wonderful. But all the time, I must say, I was definitely, even though they were making Marvel movies by then, they were making Avengers, they were making Spider-Man and X-Men movies, and the idea that there were movies was out there. I was writing very big, thinking, well, I'm going to give the audience the thing they were definitely never going to get in the movies. Mm-hmm. Like, there's never going to be Avengers movie. I think I even said that in USA Today when they were announcing new Avengers. I said, here's the book you'll never see on screen. Secret Invasion, the TV show, coming soon for Disney Plus.
Brian,
just shows you how different things are.
Brian, was Elektra the first choice to be the first scroll?
Yes. I will say we plotted it all out. My first moves were like secretly my moves. So like it was only me and Tom and Joe really knew about them at the time. It's my memory, probably assistant Andy knew too. And then from there, yeah, we started percolating more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Is this your
even planning like the red herrings? To this day, people still yell at me about, because we had like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones' baby look in the camera and her eyes are green, and it was complete red herring. Just go, oh no, the baby's a Skrull, and maybe she is. I don't know. I don't work there anymore. She could be a Skrull. I don't know.
And is this the event you most like, or from?
I do like them all a great deal for different reasons, and they represent different things. But I think if I had to really point at something and going, yeah, that behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, that's as good as it gets. It's probably everything that happened around there. I probably should have left Marvel right after. No, but it was also Civil War was cooking, and even though I'm not the author of Civil War, I was definitely in the war room. And it affected my books the most. So I ended up writing some of my favorite stuff that I ever did in Marvel around Civil War. It was all stuff Mark didn't want to write that I thought was the best stuff. And so that worked out great. So yeah, all of them mean a lot to me. And even a couple that you wouldn't even consider as big deals, but to me are like, I have this Ultimate Doom trilogy. That's one of my favorite books I ever did there, that I think probably is the best constructed plot of all of them, because it was such a tight universe. But yeah, I by this time I'm like, man, they're letting me go crazy here. They're letting me swing. They're letting me try shit. So I was very aware of what a special moment it was, and was wondering how long it would last, and it lasted way longer than I thought it would. So that was cool too.
Well, speaking of that,
but even but even to like talk to the other events, like if like one thing about Secret Invasion, it maybe was like 2 issues too long, like just for the summer, right? So like when Siege came out, I said 4 issues, like let's like really tighten it up, because like in my head, like I remember some of my books that I read as a child being much longer than they were. like X-Men Teen Titans team up. It's only 41 pages long. In my head, it's 1,000 pages. So I try to like tighten things down to the core language that we really get to the good stuff.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you a couple of times. I apologize.
No. Sorry.
No.
It's okay. We are thrilled to
hear the chat.
All the behind the scenes. We can speak.
Here the chat is loving you about these things.
Yeah.
There
was a question about running. It says, was running original Murdoch?
I know, and it's funny because it's so long ago that there was a rumor that it was Matt Murdock, and then and so someone wrote it out as a spoiler, and then I messed with the online spoiling, but it would like, and I'm trying to think like it was even like for a minute. I'll have to look at. I'm always surprised. I'd like look through old documents. I go, oh really? I don't remember that. I was going to do that, huh? And but no, it was. And even if it was maybe like for a second, but it was no, the story that was told was the story that was told. Absolutely. So, and also I was so excited David Mack is one of my best friends. And I think Echo is one of the great things he's ever done. And I was so excited to bring Echo to the book as well. Because I wanted to offer Echo the same space as Jessica Drew and Luke Cage, like really honor what a beautiful creation it was. I also at the time was very aware that there was a lot of my friends who were creating a lot of new cool characters and then they were just disappearing. And like the Sentry, the Hood, these are very good. Brian K. Vaughan created the Hood, co-created the Hood. And so I would call up the creators and I go, hey, can I use them? And I remember Paul Jenkins said the cutest thing. Yes, please. It's almost insulting that nobody else wants to write my characters. And to us, it was like, we're just respecting each other's space. Like, no, that's your toy. I'm not going to come over and play with your toy while you're playing with it. But it ended up that, so I was trying to include as much modern characters with the classic characters as well, because I thought what a great way to celebrate them.
You spoke about creator freedom, and I think when you got into this, it was total freedom.
Well, I mean, freedom in that freedom to do the job well, but like there's certain things you wouldn't have Spider-Man do that wouldn't be Spider-Man, right? And like I like Spider-Man wouldn't beat the shit out of someone because he didn't like his lunch. Like that's freedom would let me do that, but that's wrong. It's a bad choice. So, but I will say it allowed me an immense amount of opportunity to invest a lot of myself and my real like energy into Spider-Man, particularly. That like it was a perfect moment in time for me because I was old enough to reflect back on my high school, but wasn't too old that I'm like remembering it with rose-colored glasses. The wounds were still fresh, even in my 30s. And I'll tell every writer, I go, don't let those high school wounds heal. Keep picking at the scabs. They're good. They last for a long time. You can make a lot of money off them in the long run. And so it was a perfect mixture of what they wanted and what I can do. It just, and them really trusting some bigger instincts on my part, like Peter not being in costume for most of the run. There's whole chunks of that book where it's just about Peter Parker. And I was so grateful that the audience rarely ever noticed. No one ever complained, at least not to my face. And a lot of people complained to my face about a lot of stuff. So I would know. But so it was beautiful. I wrote yesterday on Twitter, someone had posted about Ultimate Marvel Team Up being this book, and I told them I think gun to head, Ultimate Marvel Team Up is probably my top 5 books I've ever done, because that one they'll let me go bananas. They would let me just like call my favorite artists in the world, hire them to draw whatever they wanted to draw, and around that build the first building blocks of the Ultimate Universe. It was beyond anything I'd ever thought I'd get. So writing this and the Ultimate Universe should not have worked they had tried it in the past. It did not work in the past. So there was a lot that said it may not work. It's also not something most of the core audience was rooting for. In fact, there was an article in Comic Buyer's Guide or Comic Book Resources where they said, hey, what do you think of this new Ultimate line? And everyone in comics said, it's a terrible idea. This is shit. And the only person in comics that said they liked the idea was Mark Miller. Because I don't know, that's pretty cool. And so he got hired. So it was cool to have that much against us, and then we proved ourselves. That was nice. I've had that opportunity a couple of times where the internet's like, yeah, we'll see, buddy, and then you put it out, and there's kind of a change in tone, and I've liked that. I've also had it where I put it out and the tone gets worse, but that, this one was one where it went well, and I all the way through to the end, it was a dream job.
Here in Argentina, the Ultimate Saga, all the Ultimates are very, very popular here.
It makes me so happy. I'm happy nowadays, it's aging well too. Like things spin so quickly in our culture now. I'm so happy that it reads well.
Nowadays, they wanted, or many people here want to acquire those issues. So it's very popular.
That's amazing. I know. I get a little taste of that at conventions, particularly if the first appearance of Miles Morales or something. It's crazy. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I put the Ultimatum saga that I wrote.
Ultimatum wasn't mine. Ultimatum was Jeff Loeb. Yeah. I can't take credit for that. And I'll say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but there's something in that comic book that really got me question a lot of things about the final destiny of Peter Parker. And in that book, it looks like, sorry, spoiler alert if somebody didn't read it, but it looks like he dies. Was he supposed to die in Ultimatum?
Nope. But what allowed me, the hubris of the story, the one that's for young writers listening, this is a bit of a cheat, because I knew Jeff Loeb is going to drown New York. Like that's going to happen. There's going to be a tidal wave, and Magneto's going to drown New York, right? So I was able to put my foot on the gas and really lean into the disaster that's coming. Now, if I wrote, and with this one, they arrest Aunt May. She's being grilled by police because they know Peter Parker's Spider-Man, or something's going on with Spider-Man. And it looks like Aunt May's in a lot of trouble, and then tidal wave. Now, if the tidal wave didn't happen in another book, I'm a bad writer. Like that is cheating. They're like I don't have a way out of my story. Tidal wave, like earthquake. It's a nonsense way to get out of a story. But because it was being offered in the shared universe, I could really play with it. And so it allowed, like I could really sit there going, this is happening to me like it's happening to Peter, right? So I could really absorb the emotions of a disaster coming our way. And there's an image in that run with Stuart Immonen where J. Jonah Jameson is in his office and the building is underwater, and it's like he's in a fish tank, and he sees Spider-Man like saving people outside his fish tank, and it's easy one of the best images I've ever had my name attached to. It's near perfect comic book artwork, and in a way describes the entire run of Ultimate Spider-Man. Like that image is thematically is the whole run. And so I'm so grateful for it, for that. I would not have gotten there without it.
And amazing. You mentioned Miles Morales, and something that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Bendis, is that in the actual industry, today's industry, there's a lot of issues about, I don't know, gender change, I don't know, racial change of heroes. And here in Ultimate Spider-Man, you did it in a way that was proper. They was, I don't know. For me, it was normal, and it was the thing that should be.
I appreciate that.
And it was like you were ahead of time.
I don't think we were ahead of time. I appreciate that. No, this stuff like Miles should have happened years and years ago. But I appreciate you saying that. And I will say that I benefited from learning lessons from some other creators. Also, we weren't doing it out of commercial panic, which is a lot of choices get made. Like, it's not selling, let's make a change. Like, and comics, not just comics, TV does it too. But for us, we were successful book, and we were sitting around thinking, what could we have done better? What would we do now that we didn't know then? And years had passed. Like, we learned a lot of lessons. And so that started the conversation about Miles, and we were focused fully on the character and his journey and his story. And in the back of our head, very aware that this representation is important and don't fuck it up. But the only way you could fuck it up is by not focusing on the important elements of building his character and his story. So we had a good head. We had a good spirit. We're not in panic, and we had time to think about it. Like, no one's in a rush. So it took about 1.5 years to come up with the choices that you ended up seeing. Like, we'd go back to work just making our comics, and then one day Joe calls me up and says, "Hey, have you seen the documentary Waiting for Superman?" And I go, "No, I haven't." He goes, "It's about charter schools, which is a thing in America." He goes, "I don't think I've ever seen a comic book that took place in a charter school." And I'm like, like, for Miles, he goes, "Yeah." And then like every couple of weeks, like a new thing that was different than Peter would reveal itself. Like, we were getting closer to, like, who is Miles? What does he want? What does he get? And also, oh, how interesting. He gets bit by a spider in a world where there's a Spider-Man, right? So that, like, just because you get bit by a spider doesn't mean you have to be Spider-Man. Like, so that idea that he doesn't right away, it's quite a journey to get yourself into a costume, right?
And also, you did something very, very special and very different from Peter to Miles. That Miles he has a family,
yes,
mother and stepfather.
Mm-hmm.
No, like Peter. That Peter, he's living with his aunt, and he has economical problems. Peter and Miles is kind of like that, but Miles is not like Peter. So it's another environment.
We made a list of things beyond the racial components and upbringing. Like, what other things, and someone told Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. That doesn't come with the spider bite. Like, you have to find that out, right? What if Miles's uncle wasn't such a good guy? When he was filling Miles' head with other ideas, right? Like, a lot of it's upbringing and the energy around you. And then Miles finds out, like, his dad was kind of getting in trouble as a young man, and have that idea that, oh, there's he was raised very differently, and a loving mother. And I did say, like, wouldn't it be nice if there was one Marvel character whose father did not die or betray, or and again, I've said this a couple of times, but it's looking at it academically, you can't help but want to ask Stanley. He said, "Oh man, what was with you and your father?" Because everything's about fathers betraying you or just not being there for you for numerous reasons. And by the time I had gotten to know Stanley, he was way too old to ask, "Hey, what was with you and your dad?" So you don't have to tell people that. And so all the things that you're saying is stuff we gave a great deal of thought and time for. Even like the differences in his power set. Like what other things do spiders do? Like really like let's Google the hell out of that.
Yeah.
And also by the way, the cheat, I'll say there's a cheat here because I was able to dramatically kill Peter Parker for that to become the Miles Uncle Ben moment, right? And that idea was when it was time to start writing. Like, okay, if we kill Peter, people like Peter. No one's asking us to kill. No one's going, ugh, Peter Parker. No one's ever said that. So if we're going to kill Peter, it's got to be towards a bigger goal that still includes Peter's legacy, right? And if Peter is Miles's Uncle Ben, we're off to the races. So that was the final moment.
That I think it's one of the best parts.
Wonderful.
And one of the best things, better thought of Ultimate Spider-Man. And the change of the mantle feels so legitimate, so legitimate. It's something that really I really like it, and
I appreciate that. And the two cheating parts is, and if you're mad at me for doing it, Peter Parker's fine in Dan Slott's book. Don't worry about it. He's right over there. It's fine. Peter's fine. So that's a bit of a cheat. Also, because the Ultimate line was so tight, such a small line, it's very easy to really dig into the emotional moments of like loss and wins and things like that. So the tighter the line, the more the more organic it all feels.
Feels okay.
Yeah. And what I was going to ask you is, were you aware when you start this new character that Secret Wars was coming?
No. This is years before. No, there was. I honestly, it's still about I hope. And also, as we're building Miles, I'm very aware of all the subjects you just brought up, all the traps and minefield that I'm walking into, and particularly, I'm white. I don't know if you can tell, and but I'm Jewish, and I'm the father of a multiracial household, and I have the job, and I just wanted to bring the representation I could bring in, and I had help, and I had people over my shoulder helping me. I've said publicly, David Walker was right there the whole time, going, don't fuck it up, but really being an enormous amount of help and inspiration as we were going, and really kept me honest and was one of the many people I could come to and ask questions of and whatnot. So I was conscious of everything that we were doing and the dangers of it were, and if I was going to take this on, then I should make sure my ears are wide open and I'm listening to everything and taking it in and doing right. So appreciate that.
Yeah, but what I was trying to ask you is that you begin to develop this character, this new Spider-Man, and then Secret Wars cuts.
Well, listen, you just laid out a series of bombshell events that I dropped on all of the writers at Marvel. So the least I can do is just celebrate my place in it when it's not my turn. I was aware so I knew what Secret Wars, and I got to be careful. I don't want to spoil anything, even though I know it was a while ago, but I knew what it was and I knew where it was ending. And when it was ending and the Ultimate Universe was going to end, the first thing was, and what we're going to do is take all the good parts or the parts that we think will work in this reconstituted Marvel Universe and put them all together. By this time, and to the audiences, because of the audience, Miles was inevitable. Miles was coming to the mainstream Marvel Universe. And I was thrilled And I was thinking I was leaving the book. I actually quit the book at that point and said, well, that'll be my final statement. Miles is here. Bye, everybody. And then I was sitting there in the retreat going, wow, like I really like where we're going with all this. I want to write. I do want to write Miles with Peter, and I want to write Spider-Man, and I want to write. And then I did whisper, I don't think I should have quit. And they go, yeah, we weren't.
Keep doing it.
Yeah, you're good. So I was grateful that I was able to stay with the book till my end at Marvel. So because it ended up that staying with Miles past Secret Wars was where I found out the most about Miles and myself and the character. The highlight of which is talking about editorial process. They came to us and said, hey, we're going to do a series of Generations specials where every character meets their legacy version. Like Miss Marvel will meet Captain Marvel and Miles will meet Peter, but he's going to meet like the Steve Ditko Peter, right? And not the Mark Bagley Peter. All right. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then when I started writing it, I discovered things about Peter Parker and Miles that I had not discovered in all the years I had written previously. And so I was delighted that I had stayed with it long enough to get to some higher truths with these characters. So yeah, that's another version of how the editorial process can just be a gold mine of almost improvisational collaboration where everyone's yes-anding each other. If you get the reference in improv and comedy, the idea is to yes and. You never shut anyone down. You just build on every idea that you hear. And in a shared universe, you can really do that.
And you finish your run on Ultimate Spider-Man, New Avengers, and you got to DC, and they gave you two flagships that was Superman Action Comics.
Yeah.
How different was writing Spider-Man New Avengers and writing Superman Justice League, for example?
So incredibly different. I was offered the same amount of respect that I got at Marvel at DC. I must say they were very, very kind to me editorially for the entire time they were there. I honestly, I felt myself living this advanced fantasy camp because when I was, again, 1985, all my favorite Marvel creators went to DC, John Byrne and George Perez and Walt Simonson, and they'd all moved on and switched over. Jack Kirby famously did it. Like I was like, all my heroes had done this, right? So I was like, and Dan was offering me a handout at that level, and I was quite knowing full well how old we are that I knew how special it was what he was doing for me, and he knew how special it was what he was doing for me. So it was grand. So I walked in and I thought, gee, let's learn all the lessons you can learn that you learned at Marvel. Let's apply them to Superman. Let's apply them to Legion of Superheroes and all of the other. So I came in with, and also they go, hey, would you like an imprint? Like I was not going to say I want an imprint. They literally gave me 2 imprints to play with, one of my own work and one of their stuff, and that was beyond generous and cool, and let me cast books to my taste, and it was wonderful. So yeah, it was great. I will say, I not to get too dark or on this, but it was public that right when I was switching over from Marvel to DC, I almost didn't make it. I had an infection that I was told I was not going to recover from. So I was literally told to wrap it up. So I was scrambling to finish my last issue of Spider-Man through an infection on my face when I couldn't see. I was blinded and I couldn't see. But I was sitting there going, I have 10 pages left of an 18-year run. I have to finish. And at the same time, I'd already started my Superman plans. And I was just like, oh, I'm not going to get to do them.
Brian,
they told me I'm not going to get to do them. And then 3 weeks later, I was all better and I could go do everything I was allowed to do. So not only did I get to write Superman, I got to write it with a passion that only comes with a such a near miss. But what with it comes some obvious immediate trauma and some trauma that I'll be unpacking for the rest of my life. But instead of focusing on that trauma all day, I got to sit and think about what would Superman do. And I was being paid to think, what would Superman do, right? And it kept me in a much healthier mindset than I think I would have been. And then just as I was settling down from all of that with Superman's help, the pandemic hit. And if you remember those very, very dark days where we weren't sure what was, I mean, there was months there where like, oh, are they even going to, like, who knows what society will be and if they're going to even be making comics. And I, like everyone else, was very dysregulated sometimes. And I then had hours of my day where I just had to think, what would Superman do? So I went from one traumatic event to another traumatic event with Superman holding my hand. And Lois, the best reporter in the world, showing me truth instead of bullshit that we're seeing online. And so I tried to tell Dan DiDio and the others, like, without getting too, like, what a gift it was, beyond the gift of, hey, come to DC and have fun. It really was a well-timed, emotionally healthy, therapeutic environment for me to be writing in, and that I'm very grateful for. And I'll be curious to see what I think of the work in a few years from now. I'm sure I'll look at it and go, Mr. Trauma over there. Yeah, like sometimes, but in the moment, yeah, that's it. Now, what was funny is that I really went out of my way to say, we were talking about like when I blew up Avengers Mansion and everyone's like, fuck you, Bendis. I was like, you know what, man, you're coming into DC Comics enough to know you are a stranger to some of this audience. Some of this audience buys everything. They know. And some of the audience is very excited you're coming. And some of the audience just likes Green Lantern. That's it. And they don't like so may I also honor these DC fans who have been through a couple of reboots, who have been through a couple of exploding crises. And why don't I come in with arms open and really give it like a lot of love towards this family and really give them something special. So so the reaction to John Kent being aged up was I didn't mean to blow it up. I'm sorry. I really didn't want to piss anybody off, and I pissed off. Oh, they were so mad. Like someone was yelling at me the other day. I go, dude, that was 5 years ago. Come on.
Brian,
what was the motive? Because of
like I had the same thing with Luke Cage. Once a character is physically invulnerable, you're like, okay, well, where are they? Like, this is the crime writer in me. All right, well, we'll get them, right? Well, guess who isn't bulletproof? The baby, right? So like, give Luke Cage a baby. Now he's very vulnerable. Like says new dad Brian, who had just had a baby. Like you're sitting there holding the baby, going, "I'm in charge of this. I gotta, it's every parent knows that feeling. You're like, holy shit, now I'm in charge." Having Superman have that, like, now he has a family. Like, so I inherited not just Superman, but he has a family, right? It is so what happens to that family would be Superman level stuff, right? So thinking about what has Superman lost, what would hurt, and to have him, you have to deal with, like, he knows that his son is going to experience things as scary as what he's experienced. and come away with them differently. And all he could hope for is that he'll teach him everything he could teach him and get him there, right? So I thought this story of, and again, I was so grateful to Dan Jurgens from Mr. Oz. I would have never done Mr. Oz. Like, I know me, I would have never done that if it wasn't a gift that I was given. So you have Dad, who was in all that we thought he was, right? And Superman having to deal with that. Sorry, that's me bringing some Marvel stuff over to DC, but it's a genuine thing where this dad might not be what we hoped he would be, but he was the dad that made Superman. You know, like some of those like shitty parents that make great athletes, right? Like, so there was that, and I thought, oh my God, for Superman to feel the loss that I didn't get to experience my son growing up, but I did get to experience that he grew up to be the man I prayed he would be, and even a little better, right? So there's some of the audience that's very focused on what he lost, but a lot of the other part of the audience got, yeah, John kicked ass. That was John's, like there's like more than one origin story in a hero's life. That was one of his origin moments. He got through an actual trial by fire in a volcano. Like, it couldn't be more like on the nose. He got through it with his dad's and his mom's ethics, that everything they taught him held, even when he could have gone very dark and no one would have ever known. So that was that was the motive to bring that. Now, were Thomas taking it?
Brian?
Yes.
I want to ask you if did you inspire to write Superman like John Byrne? You took that Superman, or
no? I will say, in retrospect, that's not my favorite Superman, and I did an enormous amount of research and rereading prior to me coming to DC. I had like a 6-month window where I was definitely, the contract is signed, so go nuts. And it's very different reading books as a fan than it is reading it as a collaborator or co-author or continuing author. So I was able to like really examine some of this. Every character has cycles of stories that just come out of just publication, and Peter's got his goblins, and X-Men's got their Phoenix deaths, and there's a cycle of stories that goes on. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes a creator wants to come in and kind of like put a pause on the cycle and try something else, right? And I had noticed I literally was reading one of those DK books. I don't know what they have in Argentina, but like the big book of DC month by month. Like, here's everything that happened in every year of DC. And it's like literally like reading the Diamond catalog throughout all the years. Like, here's like a synopsis of every little story that happened. And through every little story, I would see a cycle of, it was Lex Luthor the whole time. Like, no matter how big the story was, and no matter who involved, in the end, it was Lex Luthor. So I go, you know what? Let's take a Lex Luthor pause, right? Like there's been a lot of that, and just try something else. And again, there's been times where I was right on the money. I did that once at Marvel, where I had noticed that everyone was using Nick Fury to start their story with a manila envelope. Here's Nick Fury with your mission. And I was like, God damn, it's like it's getting so like repetitive that I was like,
it's just like Bernard Lee gave James Bond, you have to do this.
Yeah, but like when you have like 50 writers all doing the same bit, it gets real old fast. And I go, hey, why don't I just take Nick Fury off the table for a year and let everyone try to like. This one, I thought, if we take Lex Luthor off, just not off the table, he's there, but if we take him out of the narrative for a year, we can really focus on the other elements that need to be focused on. And also I quickly got to truth and secret identities don't match. It doesn't match. And so when I offered, hey, everybody, it's 2020. Why don't we get rid of this secret identity? He can still be Clark Kent. He still identifies as Clark Kent. He still wants to be Clark Kent. He just doesn't have to lie to everybody. Who's he lying to? Who doesn't? What would change if Lex Luthor found out Clark Kent was Superman? Nothing. He still attacks Lois Lane every 10 minutes. It's still the same people. So logic. And I go, wouldn't it be interesting to just like take this character that, even though I think he's the best character, people still, you see online every 3 days. Why is Superman why isn't there a Superman movie? And I'm like, let's put out some more modern ideas in him and take it for a ride. So yeah, again, I think I forgot the question, but that was the motivation was to just try new,
new things.
It doesn't work. It's comics. You have a crisis and it all goes away. But I was grateful that they allowed me the moment to add some real changes to the mythos and that they landed. I was also very it was very exciting. When I wrote Daredevil being outed, that happened to him. That was almost a crime against him. And Superman had agency in his. Superman made a choice to out himself, and I thought it was interesting to over a 20-year period to have both those stories told, and I thought they both represented where we are in the world at the time.
Mr. Bendis, now
I like this Mr. Bendis stuff. You
because I respect you.
I call you Brian. This is sorry.
Yeah. I will call you Brian. Brian, you were writing Superman and Action Comics, and you mentioned that you like crime stories, noir stories, and Action Comics for me was way better than Superman. Not because of the action, because the action you can read Superman and there was a lot of action, space action, and something like that. But Action Comics, what you introduced about Leviathan and Checkmate, all those things, was that your favorite book? And that's what you introduced all those things?
I love them all equally. I was more challenged by Action Comics because it's more of a balance. Superman out in space with aliens is where he belongs. Yeah, he should be punching planets, right? but Superman fighting, Superman using journalism to win is harder to write and harder to pull off. And Superman in a noir environment where he doesn't just wrap the building around someone's ears is harder to write. So I when things are harder to do, I get more. I do fall a little more in love. When something scares you, it gets exciting. It's so there was that. I liked the discovery in my research, going back to all the rereading I did. I got to those Wayne Boring issues. There's quite a few places where Superman is full on a journalism comic with crime elements as in the front, right? And you look at some of those Wayne Boring issues and stuff, that it's drawn like a pulp comic. It's drawn very, very almost like Daredevil used to be drawn. So it allowed me to try to bring that in. And also, those issues with Klaus Janson and John Romita, those are three Daredevil creators working on Superman. What are you going to get? And but it was about making Metropolis a real character in the book, like a real, like in at Marvel, it's New York. And you can take whatever part of New York you want and make it real and focus it, right? But with these, make-believe cities, you have to really build them. And Gotham is completely built. They've built every brick of Gotham. Everything is called for. And with Metropolis, even with as much time dedicated to Metropolis, there's still portions of Metropolis that haven't really been built into sections. So I wanted to use the living, breathing city as what that is, what he's trying to protect. That is what he's trying to tell the truth on. So I appreciate that you liked it. It also, yeah, I got to work like that Action Comics. I got to work with Jim Lee and Ryan Sook, and just like this parade of like artists that are my favorites. I never thought I'd get to work with, and they were just lined up for me to work with. It was amazing.
And Alex Valim in Checkmate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was also the other portion of the DC move that was exciting is that some of my friends were under contract at Marvel and couldn't come, and some of my friends I could bring with me, and hey Alex and David Marquez, if you want, come on, let's go make some Batmans and have some fun. So I got to do that with some of my friends, and they all had a great time. And also I got to meet all these new collaborators, like new people I never get to work with, like Ryan, Nick Darrington, who I ended up becoming very close friends with. It's the most exciting part.
Ivan Rice, you work.
Oh, I love Ivan. I love Ivan so much. Yeah, I did ask for Ivan when I got here. I go, Ivan is the best classic superhero creator, not at Marvel at the moment. And I was like, walk right in and go, Ivan, please. And I was so happy that Ivan and I hit it off like right away. Like I love him. Sorry. You had a question in there and you said Ivan, it triggers me into with joy. Sorry.
Yeah, it was one of the questions of the chat that says how do you feel working with Ivan Rice?
Yeah, that was it. That's how I feel. I can't wait to do it again, and I hope we get to do it again. I have collaborations, quite a few of them, where that was delightful from beginning to end. There wasn't any pages where I go, what is he doing? Or arguments or misunderstandings. It was just wonderful. Just wonderful. And he draws an amazing Superman. It's amazing. Yeah. He draws, and it was very similar to Bagley, where it's a very strong style and he can do anything with it, right? And with Bagley, it was I discovered very quickly that his character acting was second to none, and it was very rare that anyone was asking him to do that, right? And so then that's where I leaned into it so hard with Peter Parker. And I had almost 20 years later an identical observation with Ivan, whereas I'm reading the Sinestro War or the Rand Thanagarian War and the other stuff that he was involved in. And I am just like, this guy does bombast better than anyone in comics. Wow. And then I was like, what? I wonder if he wants to do these small moments. You know what I mean? I wonder if. And boy, oh boy, just the most romantic moments between Clark and Lois. And that's all acting. That's like, I can write and they kiss, right? But it's all on the artist about how truthful that moment looks and how in love they seem, how marital the kiss is versus like a first date high school kiss. Like a kiss between a husband and a wife who have been through some shit is a different kind of kiss, and he nails it. Everything.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a new imprint that they gave you. That was Wonder Comics.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it from beginning to end. That was great.
Two comics I love were these two. And one that was a Young Justice. We interviewed John Timms, and he spoke fondly of you.
Good, because I love him. I'm so glad.
He was very happy.
He was very kind. He was very kind.
Yeah. We had a good time, and I'm glad that he's happy because he came into the book at a time where all the wheels were turning. Like sometimes you start a book together and then sometimes it's someone else's turn, but we're in the story. Like the story is already being told. So he comes in, and not only is it all of Young Justice, but I'm bringing in classic Young Justice and all of Wonder Comics. So I'm really throwing the kitchen sink at him. And we're going through the multiverse. So I'm throwing Captain Carrot and all this other stuff, and he was wonderful. He just handled it.
Yeah.
So I thought sometimes I think he's like rolling his eyes at me, like, yeah, come on, dude. But he was wonderful.
Well, he did a great job, and the book of Young Justice is one of my favorites.
It's good.
About especially because you brought back my favorite Superboy, that it's Connor.
Yeah, that was it was fun. There were days where my Twitter feed was fuck you for what you're doing to John Kent, but thank you for what you're doing with Connor Kent in the same way. That's fair. It's solid.
Also, you introduce new characters as Teen Lantern. Teen Lantern was a character that I really like it.
Thanks.
And
Me too.
And it was sad that later they didn't use her properly, because it was like one more Green Lantern, and it was.
Well, I have a different opinion. I was thrilled that Jeff Thorne raised his hand. As I said earlier about how like Paul Jenkins was like, yeah, someone use the Sentry, please. I would want anyone to use these characters too, and it's really the only way they stay alive, right? So I was thrilled that just as I was done with her, there was a place for her in the Green Lantern mythology that they were building. Because yeah, you're right. There's a lot of lanterns. So you know, I was happy that she was included. And anyway, my favorite, not the favorite, but the one that I do wish was the star of the #1 book in the country was Jenny Hex. I really enjoyed creating her. I love what Max did with her. I had a lot of ideas for her, and so, you know, hopefully one day
Jonah Hex. I love it. I love the stories.
Yeah,
I love the Western stories. Love it.
Yeah, but talking about like legacy characters, like Miles is a legacy character, and DC is the home of legacy characters. So having like a new kind of legacy character was exciting for me. That was I forget where that came from, but I got really excited about it.
And also you brought Impulse, another great character.
Yeah,
all the Young Justice
back.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Young Justice. It was very influential to me on the Ultimate books that we were doing. I loved them, and thrilled that it was available, and that like no one was doing anything with it. I do know that there were a couple of creators that had pitches in for Young Justice that I didn't know about until mine got greenlit, and then they were mad at me. I didn't know, so but when they came to me to do an imprint, and I was already having missing my Marvel babies, and I was thinking about like the energies that I wanted to bring in, and yeah, there was like similarities to Luke Cage and Daredevil and Superman, right? They're like that, so that energy would continue. But I was really enjoying writing Miles and his friends, not just Miles, but all of the teen characters that we were writing. I love writing characters just as they're about to figure out who they are, just as they're about to figure out what the world's really like. That's a very fun thing to write. And I didn't want to let that energy go. So I said, well, maybe at first I thought my line of books at DC would be a crime fiction line. I would do The Question and Chase, and I think I wrote those all down. Like, what would a line of crime books be? But then I looked at what my line of Jinx World books were becoming, and it was Pearl is a crime comic, and Murder Inc. is a crime. I was doing a line of crime comics as my creator-owned books. So I said, no, well, maybe this should be like an ultimate line, like a line of young heroes at the cusp of figuring themselves out. And then I said that, and I'll have to look it up. I cannot remember if Dan yelled Young Justice at me or if I yelled it at him, but Young Justice as the tentpole of a line of young books that would also include like new things was very, everyone said yes right away. And then it was like, well, what would the other books be? And again, the whole time Dan thinks I'm about to pitch my Batman book because everyone pitches Batman, but I was not going to pitch a Batman book because I knew everyone had a Batman book. So I'm sitting there going, Dial H for hero. So I'm off the, so he's thinking about the money he's spending on me and if he's going to get it back on Dial H for Hero and Wonder Twins. Like I literally, here's a line of things that I think are really fucking cool. And I'm just going to put them out there with the writers and artists who I think are the coolest. And that'll be, if I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And what we ended up with was the best book Sam Humphries has done in mainstream comics is Dial H for Hero. And it's really funny because he's a close friend of mine and I'm a big fan of his writing. And I called him up and I said, Dial H for Hero. He goes, great. What is that? And why are you thinking of me for it? And he did the research and got into it, and him and Joe Quinones killed. And then for Wonder Twins, I sit there. I knew Wonder Twins was an uphill battle because every time Dan referred to them to me or wrote an email about them to me, he referred to them as the goddamn Wonder Twins. So I knew it was not like he was doing it under duress. Like as long as I did my Batman thing with Nick Darrington, he'd be okay with trying this Wonder Twins thing. So I try to meet him halfway and go, who's the best writer to do this? And absolutely Mark Russell, 100%. After what he did to Flintstones and Snagglepuss, it was a no-brainer. And we were just getting to know each other a little bit. So I was like, yeah, that's who. And then Stephen Byrne, whose work I absolutely adored. And because the next thing he did right after that was a creator-owned book with me. So so the whole line was coming together. And then David Walker and I teach here in Portland, Oregon. We teach at Portland State how to teach writing. And we were literally standing across from each other in a crowded classroom talking about the modern version of the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and looked at each other like, yeah, we should not be talking about this. We should be doing it. And that's where Naomi came from.
You mentioned there you do crime stories from the comic books. Please, we want to write the question. To be fair, please.
I think I made the right choice, and I took the energy that would be the crime stuff, and I put it in Action Comics, which made him happy, and also the Event Leviathan storyline that I kept going for the years that I was at DC was a place, although it's espionage, it is with the language of film noir, and it's a dark book with adults in it. So that certainly scratched that itch as well.
Was that a long-term story, or was that an event and checkmate and that's all?
Well, first they asked me to do, I forget how it came about. They wanted me to do like a DC miniseries of something other than Superman around, and Alex was coming with me to do it. So, and Alex and I, many years before, got a call from DC Comics to leave Daredevil and come to Batman. And now we couldn't do it at the time because we were under contract. But we also knew at the time that what they liked about our Daredevil run, they might not let us do on Batman. So we stayed where we were. But of course, it stayed with us. Oh, we forgot to do Batman. Oh, and of course, every time Alex does something for fun, he draws Batman. And again, go look at his Twitter feed. Batman all day. And so I knew, like, he said, I'm coming with you. I go, what do you want to draw? He goes, you know what I want to draw. So like it was Batman and The Question and Green Arrow. So it was really building a team around Alex's talent, which is a good way to start. And then the mystery started. Now, when Event Leviathan was cooking, DC editorially was headed towards an idea that they never got to. Some of it you may know about. It was very public. Dan DiDio has talked about it. Grant Morrison has talked about it. Like, it's been talking about. They were building towards this 5G event that would bring the timeline of DC to a full continuity. I was in many, many meetings where Dan described this at great length, and that the creators would then have, he called them pillars, story pillars that we would be in charge of. Then I was going to get espionage, and another writer was going to get cosmic, and another writer was going to get basically genres, right?
Yeah.
And there would be a flagship title that was the book, and other titles underneath it that lived in this space, and that there would be crossover eventually. But for the new generation, there would be basically mini imprints of continuity, all of which seemed pretty scary and interesting, and I had never done it before, right? Like even all those moves with all the events, I'm like, oh, we've never done it this way. Let me see. So I had that. Am I nervous because it's a good idea, or am I nervous because it's a bad idea? I don't know. It's the same nervous. It's the same feeling. So but what happened to me was I knew before. I got a head start on the content. Like I got to start building, like it was all headed towards Checkmate being the flagship title of my espionage pillar, right? That was the goal. So all of this event Leviathan, event Checkmate was headed towards this Checkmate book, all of which was never to happen because the entire line of ideas blew up. The best ideas of it have made their way into the comics. Like everything I heard that was a good idea didn't make it to publication in those books. So don't feel like you missed out on much of anything. But there's a definite what if. What if Dan stayed at DC? What if 5G launched? What if it landed? What if, it would have been a lot of new ideas, a lot of new ways to do DC ideas. So, but it was not meant to be.
He was here two months ago.
2 shows.
Oh, really?
2 shows ago. Yeah.
Yeah, he spoke about the 5G and everything.
Good.
It was very interesting.
The story was interesting.
Yeah, I was in all the meetings riveted. It was not boring. It was genuinely, wow, I wonder if we can pull this off. I don't know. That's fascinating. And also DC has like a unique history with reboots and rebranding and crises, and some of it's my favorite stuff ever, and some of it's the stuff that drives me nuts the most, right? So I was like, which one is this? We'll find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian, to start ending the interview, we're going to ask you.
Yeah, I'm never going to end this interview because you worked so hard to get it. So it'll be over when you say it's over.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
What do you think about these incarnations
of
your creation?
This is my stuff. This is my stuff. When the
is
journalist is activated. When the journalist is activated.
It's a hug that never stops. First of all, those are 3 very different experiences in my life, all of which are very good. But like Miles, there's a 12-year span in my life between Miles and Naomi. So like I'm a different person, like,
yeah.
So Miles, I can't believe it. I think of when you make me flash back to the earliest days when we were creating it and hoping, I hope no one beats me up for this. And the Academy Award goes to Miles Morales. That's crazy. I am such a comic professor that I'm very aware that many of my heroes did not get to experience what I've experienced. Like it's happened. This has all happened to me while I'm still here, right? Like you read any interview with Jack Kirby and he talks about the paper stock that he wanted his books on, which he ended up getting, but he didn't live to see it. And if you look at the last 45 minutes of Avengers Endgame, that's characters from every decade of his life coming together to beat the shit out of each other. And it's the only thing America united in love for. Like it's the only. Go online and listen to the audience reaction. I'm sure you've done it. Like that beautiful audience reaction of Captain America picking up the hammer. Right. It is the most beautiful experience in the world. All right. And Jack didn't get to experience it, and it happened just as he wished it would happen. I got the genuine privilege of not only being a coherent and alive while it happened, but I got to experience it with my children. I got to experience it with my family, my friends. I wasn't fully present for it while it was happening, but I got to stay with it. Thankfully, they're making 2 more, so I get to experience it again and get to really like focus on experiencing it. I am very grateful to Lord and Miller. They went out of their way to make sure that I was respected and taken care of in the process. I think you know that a lot of creators don't feel that way and have not been given that opportunity. I say this out loud because the filmmakers need to know they have a lot of say in this, that you can make the creators' lives a lot easier and happier by including them in the process, or just celebrating them wherever you can. So I was a big fan of Lord and Miller years before I had ever met them. I mean, a big fan. Like that's my kind of comedy. And so to meet them and then hear they're doing it, and then to meet Peter Ramsey, and then to show me the first clips of the movie, and I'm like, oh, shit, is this really good? This looks like it, like it's been around so long. Like that first time you watch it, like, holy shit, this is like art. And also sometimes you're shown stuff behind the scenes and it's good, and it just gets worse as it goes because they're trying to make it for everybody, and they just take all the special stuff. But with Spider-Verse, every time they showed it to me, it was better. It just like much better. And I was like, it's like, wow. And then I knew I was leaving Marvel, and it helped me leave. Like it don't get better than this. It just doesn't. Like they're making this thing, and I didn't even know, and like people don't even know, like I'm listed as executive producer on the film. That was a surprise to me. I'm not contractually obligated to have that. They honored me with it, to share a card with Stan. That was a beautiful, beautiful moment in my life that I did not know was coming. And it was really funny because I was leaving Marvel, so I thought going to the premiere was weird, right? So I didn't go. and I've been to premieres before. They're very cool, but like they're parties, they're industry parties, right? So I didn't go, and I know I was befuddling the filmmakers. Like, why wasn't I there? And it's because I was having a lot of emotions and weird feelings about everything, and I was leaving, and then they arranged for. They said, we're going to rent a movie theater for you in Portland, and tell us what theater, and you can fill it with your friends and family. And this was before the movie came out. And so I got to literally invite everyone I know to come to a movie theater and watch this movie and experience with me in real time all of that magic with my mother. It's my mother, really, my wife, my friends. It was the most beautiful thing in the world, and I'll never be able to repay them for that amazing experience.
Yes, it's a really such a really good story, because I'm a journalist. I'm a film critic, so I make my living. I make my living like that. I'm a journalist. So I saw the movie with my girlfriend, my actual girlfriend. And we blew our mind because we love
what does actual girlfriend mean? Now I don't believe she's your real girlfriend.
Not the mother of my daughters. No. Well, because she's such a nerd like me, so we love the movie and we love the story. We love the story. What they did with the movie, with the characters, especially with the Kimping, that big thing here, the big villain and Miles try to stop them, and the comic book
style. The comic book style,
like
watching a comic book page.
A comic book come to real.
So as a fellow film nerd, you know when you're seeing something special, you're like, oh, it's so like it's so exciting, especially in the studio system. Like someone makes art out of something, and so beyond, I'm excited for that. I'm excited there's a movie. I'm excited it's Lord and Miller. I'm excited how it's coming together. And then I keep hearing through the grapevine that they keep hiring like Bill Sienkiewicz and Chris Anka and Sanford Green and like people I really like, that I really admire and that I love working with. And they like people I like are making money off this. And this is really exciting for me, on so many levels. And then it comes out. And to the buildup of the movie, there have been years of cosplay, that slow build of handmade cosplay, which is the most beautiful thing in the world. When someone goes and I'm going to sew it myself because I can't buy it, and then to what it became, and then right after the movie, they did that Spider-Sona thing, where that hashtag Spider-Sona, where everyone like created their own Spider-Mans and then send it to us all day. It was just this hug that never stopped. And to this day, like on right now on my Instagram today, cosplayers and filmmakers and people just making their own art out of Miles and sharing it with me. There is nothing else I would ever want in this world than to and somebody else's, getting someone to want to make other stuff, just like people made me want to make stuff. That's all I've ever wanted, right? And also selfishly, you want to have your name on a film that doesn't suck, that's going to last for a while, and once it won the Academy Award, you go, well, that's locked in. That's Academy Award trivia. That's
and also
that's
you
amazing.
compete with studios that they do animation long time ago, like Disney. And it's
we beat a Pixar movie. That's right.
Yeah, you beat a Pixar movie, right? but also because I said because I put my fan away about I put my film critic, so it's a better picture than the Pixar. But about for the storytelling, everything is emotional, more emotional.
I have peeked into the future, and I've seen what's coming with the next one, and I'm excited to tell you it continues in the best way.
Wow!
That's all I'm going to say.
About
two-part movie.
What's coming? Stanley made a cameo on the first one.
Yeah, I have turned down cameos that if I told you what they were, you would punch me in the face. Oh. I have turned down huge cameos because of all these gifts that I have told you, that these privileges that I've been given in my life. Looking at myself on camera like I'm doing right now is not one of them. I do not enjoy it. I do not want to see an 80-foot version of it. I don't. I like seeing my name in big. That is great. Put your name. That's why I use all my names. Like they take up a lot of space, right? But no one needs to see this. This is fine. And also, like, other than Stan, every time a comic creator shows up in a movie, it takes me right out of the fucking movie. She shows up with that Thor hammer, and I'm like, oh, there's Joe.
When that happens, I'm like DiCaprio in the movie.
But there is someone who plays a role I was offered as a cameo that ended up being more than a cameo. That I wonder, I know would just have been a cameo if it was just me. So I know that the actor playing the role through different movies makes me go, oh, good. That actor got a gig out of it. That's much better than seeing me.
I think in this movie, in the new movies, there will be a lot of characters, and we have a lot of surprises from this
journalist. Hey, guess who else is a journalist? He ain't gonna work on me. I know all the tricks. I work at a newspaper. I know the tricks.
I know that.
And what did you think about this? Brian.
Oh,
the Illuminati.
No, Illuminati. Again. So I'm very excited about Ironheart. You asked me about Ironheart.
About Riri.
Yeah, Ironheart.
A few weeks ago, Kevin Feige told me I'm going to be I haven't seen anything yet, but he told me personally I'm going to be very happy. So I'm excited to see what that means. Jessica Jones was a very similar experience to Miles in that I can't believe any of it happened. And also just how I discovered it was wonderful, was crazy. Illuminati is one of the things I'm most proud of at Marvel. Like, hey, there's an idea no one else has had. Like, you know what I mean? Let me, and it came out of a real world thing. Like, I was reading this book called Rules by Secrecy by Jim Mars, who wrote Crossfire, the great JFK book. It's about, these secret societies that have been running things behind the scenes for many years and in different cultures and in different parts of the world. And you can't help but go, and I was doing that with everything. Anything I read, I go, what's the Marvel version of that? And and the idea that maybe Tony and Reed and Charles would get together and try to be proactive instead of reactive. And literally, it was so funny because sometimes I name things and they're supposed to be like a temp name. It's not going to be the final name, but it sticks. And it wasn't supposed to be Illuminati. Illuminati is a thing. It's an actual thing. And so it wasn't supposed to stick. And then all of a sudden it was a logo. And I honestly couldn't think of a better name still. And all of the Marvel Secret Society, like Illuminati is cooler, right? And so, and so I'm always thinking about that. And Secret Invasion was another one. That was like a temp name that stuck the landing, right? And so when I see logos on TV, and I hear great actors go, Illuminati, I go, that's so fucking weird, man. That wasn't supposed to be the final draft. And so I did have, this was a weird one, but my son is 9 years old. A lot of this was created before he was born, or it's weird. Like Miles is older than him, and or when he was a baby, so he was watching Disney Plus. I wasn't in the room, and he comes to me. He goes, "Hey, is Illuminati one of yours?" And it was before the movie came out, and I go, "Yeah, how do you know that?" He goes, "Oh, they just said your name on Disney." He goes, "Is that really one of yours?" And I go, yeah, it's one of mine. He goes, "Oh, that's a good one," and walked away. And I was like, from your kids, that's as good as it's going to get. So
now the reactions on the theater when we saw the movie exploded when Reed appears, Black Bolt, and also with the last one, Charles Xavier. Oh,
in the yellow chair too.
It was
the yellow chair,
and also it was a mayhem there in the theater. It was
and again, like Kirby didn't get to experience that. What a gift it is that I get to experience them. I try to tell my friends that are with us with this, like my dear friend Kelly Sue, like we really get to be there for that. That's amazing. What an honor. So when it's one of Illuminati is one of my favorites. So I get it's exciting when it gets a good reaction like that, and even there's some people that they know where it came from, and some people just go, "Oh, this is cool. What's going on? This is cool. Oh shit, Xavier's here." And just that our silliness brought that idea all the way to Patrick Stewart rolling up in the chair and making everybody applaud. And even though I'm not the filmmaker that did it, I'm happy that our DNA brought that through. And also it's Sam Raimi, pretty cool. So anyway, all of it was pretty awesome. So, and again, never in my heart am I thinking, oh, this is going to be a kick-ass movie. Never, even after Miles and Naomi and all this other stuff, when I'm creating new stuff, I'm thinking about what would make the best comic book ever. and hope maybe it'll translate. But if it ain't a good comic, it ain't gonna. No one's gonna be asking. So.
And now Riri, right? Now Riri, she's coming here in next month in Wakanda.
Yeah, soon, a couple of weeks. It's crazy. There's toys on shelves. It's nuts. It's also weird to like walk into it in America. We have like a Target. I don't know if you have them in Argentina, like a store, Walmart, like a toy store, and there's Miles shit and there's Riri stuff, and it's amazing. Toys, by the way, that I would have killed for as a kid. The web shooter they sold us in the 70s versus the web shooter they have now. I think that's how I old man my son. I'm like, when I was a kid, our web shooters sucked and they got clogged in 2 seconds.
Now my web.
This is for you, son.
You don't know how good you got it with the web shooters.
This is for you, son.
Yeah, it's also what's funny. I will tell you that during the pandemic, the kids weren't having a lot of interactions with other kids, and my son was on Zoom with another boy from his class, and he was like 7, and he said, "Hey, where does your dad keep all of his comics?" And the kid goes, "What comics?" He goes, "Your dad doesn't have like 1 million comics and Funko Pops?" And he goes, "No, my dad doesn't have any comic books." And he goes, "Not any Funko Pops?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "Not one?" He goes, "No, my dad's got a room of them." So it was then that he figured out that he lucked out in the nerd dad department. That Dad's got toys. He's got Legos and shit. Yeah.
My daughter said the same to me. I said, "I want that Miles Morales, Dad."
Yeah, it's surreal and fun and all the things all at once. And I spent a lot of mental time not taking any of it for granted because it's so constant, particularly with Instagram. Like I go to Miles Morales birthday cake hashtag and look at all the kids that have Miles Morales birthdays every day all over the world. It's so wonderful. Fantastic. It's the best. What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, totally. I think it's something that can be measured. It's something that happens, and it's bigger than the one that creates.
And it's part of what inspired. I have a book I do right now with Andre Lima called Phenomena, and part of the story is about. Oh, thank you.
Yes,
you were ready for me. God bless you. And,
we got everything.
Part of it is
fully prepared.
That how like we live in a capitalist society where we think that money connects us all, but it's story that connects us all, and it gets lost sometimes in the weeds. And what if it was a world that we live, this world, and all that our value was our story and our connection to our story. And then when we share that connection with each other, it's very intimate. It's very powerful. Because I've experienced that from my place in the world over and over and over and over again, all over the place, like deep connections with strangers through character and story. And I like what if the whole world got to experience what that's like? So that's part of what motivated us to create Phenomena.
And what about the ones that I read a lot of amazing reviews?
I would have
tell us about it.
If I would have thought of it. I'm sorry I did not think of it. I should have thought of it. I'm thrilled with the reviews for the first issue because it's a comedy, and it's a comedy about every character in mythology that they were told they were the chosen one. They have to team up to defeat the real chosen one, and it's all about. It's such a funny thing in our story cycles in our culture, where the story of the chosen one, everything from the Neo to the Golden Child to the chosen knight, like all of them, and it's such a. I don't know how to say it. It's very funny to me. It's like every time someone is told they're the one, I laugh in the movie. No matter how good the movie is, I start laughing. And I wanted for years. I played with this idea for years about how to do it. And then when I figured out, it really is about how we all think we're so fucking special. Like we're all the one. I'm the one. You're the one. Everyone's the one. We all can't be the one. So I thought once that idea got into the background as a theme, I had a lot of fun with it. But writing comedy is hard because no one's there to laugh right to you. Like you don't get to experience if anyone finds it. They literally have to tweet at you funny. So that's all you get, right? And there was, I think Dan Aykroyd said it years ago, that Dan Aykroyd was talking about that, it's funny, you come up in live theater as a comedian and the laughs are right there. Like right, as you're speaking, you get the laughs. And then they move you over to movies where you tell a joke and a year and a half later, you get to find out if it was funny. Like you have to wait a year and a half. And who knows, right, in a year and a half, if you're still going to think it's funny, right? And so with comedy, like with anything, but when you're writing like a joke, rewriting the joke 25 times, it's not funny to you anymore. Like every comedian will tell you that they don't think their act is funny because they've done it to death. So I was thrilled to find out it was still working. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, it's Jacob Egger. He's wonderful. We've never worked together before. This is we did a short together just before this, but this is a new collaboration. We met on Twitter and it's worked out wonderfully.
Wonderful.
It's coming out on November 2nd.
Yeah, very soon. So pre-order now. I
right now.
Absolutely wonderful covers by Yannick Paquette and Dan.
The day before my birthday.
There you go. You were born on Halloween or after Halloween?
No, November the 3rd.
Okay, cool. There you go. It's a close to election day here in America. It's a very stressful week.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a good time to bring out a comedy. But yeah, I mean, so what you're seeing now is I've just been put in a place where I can really go swinging with some creator-owned stuff, and between Abrams and Dark Horse and some other stuff that's going to be announced very soon, you'll be seeing lots of new stuff by us.
And I have two final questions to end the interview and to release you.
Yes.
From this.
I literally I'm going to hang up and go grade papers for tomorrow. That's what I'm doing. So I'm happy to stall.
One of the questions is if you're writing any more stories for DC.
I don't know. Not right now. I got better offers that I'm more scared of. And also, like, Warner Brothers is in a bit of turmoil and has been kind of since the second year I was there. So it's a little, even though none of it hit, like I got to be clear, none of it hit me, and everyone was very nice to me the entire time. But it's hard to be around chaos. Like it's hard to be around something like all over our heads. It has nothing to do with anybody in editorial, but Warner Brothers is changing hands, and Warner Brothers is doing this. And there was a headline an hour ago. There's a bunch of layoffs coming tomorrow. Like who knows what's going to happen over there. So I am so incredibly grateful for everything that's gone on over there. I got a TV show out of it. I got I got to write Legion of Superheroes, like all this amazing stuff. But at the moment, I have something in front of me that's scarier for me personally, which is where I like to be. Like, and I don't know, like there's a little part of me was like, you climbed that mountain, Bubba. You climbed that right at the moment. That's how I feel. Like you did all that. You did all of that. And, so it's, and also like people are still discovering all of that work. So let them enjoy it. Like literally, I have new people this week with just reading my Daredevil, just reading our Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, and it's fresh to them as it were, and that's about to happen on our Riri Williams stuff. It happened on Moon Knight this summer. Like, there's people discovering the stuff as it's brand new. So let them do that while I sit back here and try to swing some new stuff out there and try some stuff I don't know if I can pull off. And that's pretty exciting for me. I'm not interested in making any kind of "I'm done with superheroes" headline, because I don't. That's not how in my heart. That's not how I'm feeling, and it would be like false press to say that. But and also tomorrow, like CB could call me up and say, "Hey, there's this thing." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing that." So I don't have a religious reason I wouldn't be working on it, other than I did it already, and I can go do my own thing, and I get to enjoy some newer creators getting to have the beautiful experience that I've already had, right? I had a really beautiful experience. I would like other people to experience that too, so so I can talk to them about it. So there's very few people who've experienced this. So it's very joyful for me to see writers like Kelly Thompson and trying, and Matt Rosenberg trying new stuff, and I'm really rooting for them, and I really hope they get everything out of it that I got out of it, and plus more.
Yeah.
But Miles, honestly, Miles alone has offered me a great deal of opportunity in other areas to try new things. Why wouldn't I try?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so that's it. So to be continued. Ask me next year.
Okay.
Now, let's see what Warner Brothers turns into. Let's see where it lands, and if it's fun to work there or not. I don't know. We'll see.
Yes.
And here's a weird question that you tell me that says, is it true that Secret War was inspired by a story a CIA agent told you as a kid?
All right. I'm going to give you something good that I've never said on a podcast, because you've earned this. Is literally you tracking me down has earned this anecdote. I've never told this. So what he's referring to is in the original Secret War, which I believe you have, there is a prologue, introduction written under anonymity by a CIA agent. And I know that people know that I've been to the CIA. I posted that I visited Langley. I gave a talk there with Sana Amanat. Like, I've been to the CIA. I've been to CIA. So it's completely muddied the waters on this joke. But it's a joke. That introduction I wrote myself. And I wrote it because I had just read a screenplay book by the Coen brothers. I'm a big fan of the Coen brothers. And in front of one of the scripts was a essay by a very famous film critic that went on and on and on and on and on about something about the Coen brothers. And then only a year later did I find out they wrote it themselves, and that guy doesn't exist. Because I literally went, well, I really like that writing. I want to read more from that critic. And they made it up. And I was so delighted by the joke. It's such a funny joke that I took very seriously. I completely thought it was a real film critic writing this thing, that I went and I wrote the intro to give the entire experience a little more gravitas. Like, oh shit, this is really happening. Yeah. I feel like I both entertained you and disappointed you with that reveal. If you don't like that, you know what? I'm actually friends with the real Jack Ryan, and he wrote it, but he told me not to tell anybody.
So you were a friend of Tom Clancy's?
Yeah, Tom. I am Tom Clancy.
So the new series is coming, I think in this year.
The Jack Ryan, or
the third season.
I thought maybe there was a Secret Wars series, because I would love to see that. That would be cool.
Me too.
Well, Brian, we're gonna give you a big thank you. Thank you for being so kind with us, being here, spend 2 hours and a half with us speaking about comics and your career. And we feel very grateful for having you here.
Thank you very much. And to everyone who hung out with us tonight, I see the comments sliding by. I deeply appreciate that. If if I didn't answer your question and you wanted to answer, just hit me up on social. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to focus on the conversation. And sometimes you see these live streams and you got people squinting and not paying attention to everything. And I like to stay in the moment when I can. So there you go. So if I didn't answer, please reach out. Thank you for having me. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Thank you for your very positive energy podcast situation here. It's very, very cool. This is great. This is exactly the kind of energy that we should be putting out. And I appreciate you contributing.
Thank you so much, Brian, to be here with us. And as I always said to the comic creators, that you are the real heroes. You give the life to the heroes, so you are our heroes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One day I will be able to take that in and appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
And thank you for your kind words, Brian, because this, as I always say, is something that we do with a lot of passion, with a lot of heart, and with a lot of love for comics. And have this privilege to speak with you and other comic book creators, thanks to technology, because we are miles and miles away.
I know, but isn't that great?
Miles Morales away.
No, but even going back to our earliest conversation about, like, I used to live in a world where I was the only person I knew who read comics, and now I'm talking to people all over the world and get to talk to you live and talk about the nerdiest of nerd stuff. We're deep in the weeds and we know exactly what we're talking about. It's amazing. I hope this was what you were hoping for. I hope it delivered what you were looking for.
Of course,
it was what I was hoping and more.
Oh, and more, much more, sir,
much more.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great night. I'm going to go eat dinner.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Go. Thank you.
Bueno, gente.
Bueno,
acá estamos.
Hemos 2 horas y media hablando en inglés.
2 horas y media hablando en inglés. Nada, perdonen los que no pude pasar las preguntas, pero la verdad que teníamos mucho para preguntarle, mucho material, y de hecho filtramos un montón de material que no nos entró para preguntarle al señor Brian Michael Bendis. Gracias por el apoyo, gracias por estar ahí. La verdad que me sorprendió muchísimo el apoyo que tuvimos. Ojalá tuviéramos este apoyo con todos.
Siempre, con todos.
Porque realmente es un privilegio tener a estas personas acá, ya sea en mi canal, o que ustedes puedan verlo y preguntarle lo que quieran, porque de hecho a Arturo Luque, que es uno de los que preguntó, o Arte Manga Manías también preguntó y se lo respondió Brian Michael Bendis.
Al doctor Sid también, que también
el doctor Sid también contribuyó, que estuvo ahí apoyando.
A todos agradecerles a todos los que estuvieron, que tiraron muy buena onda. La verdad que fue un protagonista precioso, y ojalá que sigan valorando todo esto que estamos haciendo, que la verdad que es genial. La verdad que podríamos cerrar el boliche hoy, ¿no? Como siempre decimos otra broma.
Siempre decimos, cerramos la persiana hoy, pero hay mucho más. Hay mucho más.
Muchísimo.
Hay mucho más. Hay muchos más protagonistas del cómic para los meses que vienen, seguramente. O menos, capaz.
Sí, no lo sabemos, sí.
Uno nunca sabe.
El año que viene también.
El año que viene también. Pero nada. Y la verdad que es, tanto para ustedes como para mí y para Mario, un honor, una sorpresa, y la verdad un orgullo poder tenerlo a Brian Michael Bendis en mi canal Carolina Reviews. Increíble. Y que este señor que está acá esté 34 programas al lado mío, porque yo siempre digo, protagonista del cómic, sí, lo creo yo, está en mi canal, tiene mi nombre, pero también es muy responsable este señor que estuvo desde el día 1. Vamos. Son malos, son malos.
No, pero a ver, la pasamos bien. Me encanta que toda la gente la pase bien hasta el día de hoy, la verdad, hasta ahora, digo.
Perdón para el Universe si no te pude leer todas, pero lo que pasa es que
perdón,
pasaba rápido.
A todos, a Javi Paredes que estuvo, a Javi Paredes que le mandamos un beso grande que también estuvo. ¿Quién más? Tuvo un montón de gente ahí que quiso preguntarle a Brian Michael Bendis. La verdad que fue impresionante este protagonista de cómic.
Lo bueno que pudimos hablar de casi todo, por eso digo casi todo. Me hubiese encantado preguntarle 5.500 preguntas de New Avengers, 5.500 preguntas de Ultimate Spider-Man, de los eventos, de todo, pero me focalicé en algunas de las dudas existenciales, inclusive algunas controversiales que él mismo se hizo cargo.
Las respondió bien, las respondió sin tapujos, sin nada.
La respondió...
Bueno.
Sí, bueno.
Ese es el día que cerramos el boliche en serio. Ahí sí cerramos el boliche en serio.
Ahí sí cerramos el boliche en serio.
Ahí sí cerramos el boliche en serio.
Pero nada, la verdad que muy contento de esta entrevista. Muy contento de cómo va Protagonista del cómic. Vamos por los 35 y a 5 de los 40.
A 5 de los 40, exactamente. Hoy tuvimos
la
verdad que...
Pará, y te digo algo. A 15 de los 50.
Y a 15 de los 50, exacto. Y no solo eso, sino que la verdad que tuvimos un récord de me gusta porque estamos con 119 me gustas en el programa de hoy.
Gente, yo lo que digo es, vuelvo a repetirlo, los me gusta, todo, o sea, yo entiendo que hay gente que no le interesa, le gusta más un artista que otro, pero recomiendo fuertemente que apoyen el contenido. Todo lo que están acá mirando acá, esto tendrían que ahora estar dándole, después de acá se van ya a ver, a darle like a la entrevista Protagonista del cómic con Geraldo Borges, que de hecho estuvo acá.
Estuvo Geraldo Borges.
Estuvo acá y le preguntó a Brian Bendis.
O sea, imagínense la buena onda que tuvo Geraldo Borges con nosotros, que lo tuvimos 2 veces, una cuando lo hizo de traductor de Eddie Barrows, y después, bueno, ahora estuvo acá. Sí, ya tuvimos una segunda parte con uno.
Usted lo entendió, usted lo entendió.
Pero ya tuvimos una segunda parte con otro.
Sí, bueno, tuvimos dos con Norway para el aniversario.
Sí. Con Morrison va a ser complicada.
No,
bueno, pero
es complicado entenderle, ¿no?
Es complicado, pero nos vamos a divertir. Yo creo que ese día, el día que cerramos el boliche. Ese es el día que cerramos el boliche.
Totalmente. Pero bueno, gente, nos vamos despidiendo. Ya saben, como le dije, dejen su like. Si quieren, como les dije, pueden colaborar dejando, si son del exterior, dejando super chat o tranquilamente pueden agarrar y invitar un cafecito para apoyar este contenido. Simplemente eso, no es obligatorio, es a elección, es simplemente para apoyar el contenido, para mejorar este contenido. Le doy las gracias por el apoyo de esta entrevista y le vuelvo a repetir, les pido más apoyo en el resto de Protagonistas del cómic porque es un contenido que único. Es de calidad, no sé si único, pero que es de calidad porque le ponemos todo. ¿Estamos?
Y lo que se dice todo es todo.
Todo. Y mañana, Mario, ¿dónde estamos?
Mañana tenemos en las mega compras comiqueras en el canal de Demian. Así que vamos a estar ahí a full presentando nuestras joyas. O sea, no es la tarasca, la tarasca ya la hicimos.
La tarasca ya está.
Ahora nos toca a nosotros.
Y que de hecho, la tarasca, otro que tienen que darle cariño.
Denle amor a eso, chicos.
Eso, muchachos, ustedes son los protagonistas. Ustedes son los protagonistas.
Y el domingo vamos a estar en Justicieros haciendo el preludio a Black Adam. Así que estén todos atentos porque vamos a estar haciendo el preludio a Black Adam con los cómics. No con la película, sino con los cómics. O sea,
perdón,
una gran previa.
Me hiciste acordar. Hubo alguien, no me acuerdo quién fue, que me preguntale si aparece Superman en la película de Black Adam.
Ay, sí, un divino. un divino.
Yo me reía. No, a ver, no me río del que lo preguntó. Me río porque ¿qué vas a ver por Bendy?
¿Qué le vamos a preguntar a Bendy? Sí,
no tiene ni idea.
No, estaba más emocionado con el tema de Riri Williams que aparece en Wakanda Forever que
a full.
Pero bueno.
No, y además, imagínate que fuera de joda, si vos cuando nosotros pusimos toda la parte del cine, todos los personajes del tipo que trascendieron al cine, todos los personajes del tipo que trascendieron al cine. Todos. La verdad que algo genial. Bueno, gente, nos estamos viendo. Dejen su like, suscríbanse al canal si no están suscritos, suscríbanse que estamos ahí, estamos dando. Estamos picando con Kyle. Estamos picando con Kyle ahí, taca. A ver si llegamos a los 4.000.
Sí, nosotros estamos, yo estoy hasta ya por llegar a los 1.300.
Otra cosa. Si no se suscribieron al canal de Mario, suscríbanse al canal de Mario. O sea, porque, como siempre decimos, si no lo hago en mi canal, lo hacemos en el canal de Mario. Si no hacemos el canal de Mario, lo hacemos en el canal de Demian. O sea,
sí, claro.
Nos cruzamos. O sea, aprovechen y si no están suscritos al canal de Mario, ¿lo tenés ahí a mano para ponerlo en el chat?
Dame un segundo, ya lo busco.
Ya que son 18 acá, si hay 18 que no están suscritos al canal de Mario, por favor suscríbanse, porque vale la pena. Mario, chequen el que si no creen que vale la pena, chequen el canal y van a ver el contenido que está haciendo, que está muy bueno. Inclusive el último que hicimos fue el de Salvat, ¿no?
No, hicimos el unboxing. Y los cazadores.
Hicimos el de justamente hicimos el de las.
El de los cazadores de las joyas
perdidas, claro. Sí.
Fue tremendo.
De las ediciones difíciles.
Y ahora sale, seguramente vamos para el segundo, ¿no? Así que.
Cuidado con ese. Así que bueno, gente, muchísimas gracias, en serio, de corazón. Gracias. Ahí tienen el canal de Mario en el chat. Por favor, ni bien terminemos, vayan a suscribirse a su canal, vayan a visitarlo porque tiene muy buen contenido y como le dije, si no se hace acá y no se hace en el de Demian, se hace en el canal de Mario. Así que estamos acá, o estamos allá, o estamos allá.
Exactamente.
Estamos en los 3 canales. Pero bueno, muchísimas gracias por el apoyo y por más protagonistas del cómic. Gracias y nos estamos viendo mañana en el canal de Demian.